The dust from the ranch road covered everything: Marcus's worn jacket, his faded jeans, his brown boots that had seen 15 years of hard work. He was 37 years old, and every muscle in his body told the story of his life. His hands were rough, with deep lines and scars from rope burns and barbed wire. His face was tanned dark from the sun, with a strong jaw and eyes that had seen struggle but never gave up hope. Marcus worked at different ranches across Montana. He was a good worker, the kind that ranch owners wanted, because he never complained and never left a job unfinished. But he was always someone else's worker. He had no land of his own. He had no home that was truly his. Every month he would move to a new ranch, sleep in different barns, and eat meals cooked in someone else's kitchen. His life changed when his younger brother Thomas married into the Sterling family. The Sterlings were rich, the kind of rich that came from old money passed down through generations. They owned big companies, beautiful houses, and land that stretched for miles. They had fancy cars, fancy clothes, and fancy manners. But there was something cold in their hearts. They looked at people like Marcus with something close to disgust. At family gatherings, they made fun of him. They called him the ranch hand and laughed behind their hands. His sister-in-law would wrinkle her nose when he sat down, as if his dust and sweat smelled bad. His brother-in-law would pat him on the shoulder in a way that felt mean, not kind. The Sterling children whispered and giggled whenever Marcus walked past them. Marcus never said anything back. He just smiled a small smile and looked away. He was used to this kind of treatment. Poor people got used to it. But one winter night, everything changed. A letter arrived at the small room Marcus rented above a hardware store in town. The letter was formal and expensive-looking. It said that James Sterling, the head of the family, wanted to see him. The letter said it was very important. Marcus read it 3 times, confused. Why would James Sterling want to see someone like him? On a cold December evening, Marcus drove his old truck to the Sterling mansion. The house was enormous white, with big columns in front, like something from a movie. Inside, everything was perfect and clean and expensive. Marcus felt small walking through the hallways. James Sterling sat in a huge leather chair in his study. His 2 sons stood beside him, both wearing expensive suits and smiling strange smiles. There was something cruel in those smiles, like they knew a mean joke and were waiting to tell it. "Ah, Marcus," James said, standing up. His voice was smooth, but cold, like ice. "Thank you for coming. We have something wonderful to give you. A gift from our family to you." Marcus felt nervous, but he said nothing. One of the sons walked forward and placed a piece of paper on a big wooden desk. It was indeed a legal document. James slid it across the desk toward Marcus with his long, manicured fingers. "Blackwater Ranch," James said slowly. 250 acres. "It is now yours, Marcus. You are a landowner." Marcus picked up the paper and read it. Yes, his name was there. Blackwater Ranch belonged to him now, but the sons were laughing. And James was smiling that cold smile. "Do you know what Blackwater Ranch is?" James asked. "It is a place where nothing works. The buildings are falling down. The fences are broken everywhere. No horse has stepped on that land in 7 years. No worker has fixed anything. It is a dead place, Marcus. A worthless place." The sons laughed harder. "We bought it for the back taxes that no one would pay," James continued. "We thought it would be funny to give it to you. Now you can be a real landowner. Now you can pretend to be someone important." The room filled with their laughter. Cold, mean laughter that bounced off the expensive walls. Marcus stood there, holding the paper in his hands. He felt something inside him. Was it anger? Shame? He was not sure. He wanted to throw the paper back at them. He wanted to tell them what he thought of their cruelty. He wanted to say something that would hurt them the way their words hurt him, but he did not. Instead, Marcus looked at the deed one more time. He read the name carefully. Blackwater Ranch. And then something strange happened inside him. He knew that place. He had passed it almost every morning for the past 15 years on his way to work at neighboring ranches. It was about 30 minutes from town, on a road that twisted through the mountains. He had always looked at it when he rode past at the broken barn, at the empty fields, at the house with windows like sad eyes. And he had always felt something when he looked at it. A pull, a calling. One time, 5 years ago, he had stopped his truck and stood by the fence. He had closed his eyes and imagined what it could be. He had imagined horses running free across green fields. He had imagined a barn that was whole and strong. He had imagined himself, older maybe, sitting on the porch and looking out at land that was his own. It was a dream that he had never told anyone. It was too impossible. A man like him could never own a ranch like that. But now the deed was in his hands. "Thank you," Marcus said quietly. "What?" James asked, surprised. "Thank you for the gift," Marcus said. He looked at James Sterling directly in the eyes. "I will take good care of it." He turned and walked out of the mansion. Behind him, he could hear them laughing again. They thought he was confused. They thought he would fail. They thought the ranch was too broken, too worthless, too impossible to fix. They did not know that broken things called to Marcus. They did not know that he had spent his whole life learning how to fix things. They did not know about the dream he had whispered to the wind at that old fence 5 years ago. They did not know that they had just given him the greatest gift of his life. As Marcus drove back through the winter night, holding the deed on the seat beside him, he felt something he had not felt in many years. He felt hope.
Marcus sat in his small room above the hardware store. The room was very simple. There was a single bed, a small table, a wooden chair, and a box that held everything he owned in the world. He held the deed in his hands and looked at it for a long time. That night, he made a decision. He would sell everything. Everything. The next morning, Marcus went to the pawn shop in town. He had a guitar, an old, beautiful guitar that his grandfather had given him when he was young. He had learned to play it as a boy, and it was the only beautiful thing he owned. He sat with that guitar on his lap for an hour before he walked in his shop. The owner gave him $200 for it. Marcus felt something break inside him when he handed it over, but he did not stop. He sold his truck for $3,000. It was an old truck, but it still worked. A young farmer bought it and promised to take good care of it. Marcus watched the farmer drive away in his truck, and he felt like he was watching his old life leave him. His grandfather's watch came next. It was gold, with a chain, and it kept perfect time. His grandfather had carried it in his pocket for 50 years. Marcus's hands shook as he took it off his wrist and gave it to the jeweler. $500. That was all it was worth to strangers. He sold his bed, his table, his chairs. He sold his winter coat and his good boots. He kept only the clothes on his back, one extra shirt, one pair of pants, and one pair of boots. He kept only what he could carry in a backpack. When he counted all the money, he had $3,730. $3,730 to build a ranch that had been dead for 7 years. It was not enough. It would never be enough, but it was all he had. On a cold morning in January, Marcus walked to Blackwater Ranch. He walked the entire way, about 30 miles, because he had no truck anymore and no money for a bus ticket. His backpack was heavy on his shoulders. His feet hurt. The winter wind cut through his thin jacket. But he did not stop. He walked toward his dream. When he arrived at the ranch, the sun was setting. Everything was orange and red and gold in the dying light. He stood at the broken gate and looked at his land. The house was falling apart. The roof had holes in it. The windows were broken. The porch was rotting. But he could see what it had been once. He could see what it could be again. The barn was worse. The big red doors hung on one hinge. The wood was gray and cracked. The fence around the property was mostly fallen down, with pieces of wood lying on the frozen ground like broken bones. There were no animals. There was no life. Only silence and ruin. But Marcus did not feel sad. He felt alive. He spent the first night sleeping in the barn on the dry hay. There was a hole in the roof above him, and he could see the stars through it. The stars were very bright and very cold. He wrapped himself in his blanket and looked up at those stars and thought about everything he had lost and everything he had to gain. The next morning, he started. Marcus worked every day. He worked when it was cold and his fingers could barely move. He worked when his back hurt so much he could barely stand straight. He worked when rain fell and turned everything to mud. He worked when snow came and buried the ranch under white. He repaired the barn roof first. He found old wood pieces and nails in an abandoned shed behind the main house. He climbed up on the broken roof and worked for hours, hammering and fixing, building new boards over the holes. One day he fell. He fell 10 feet and landed hard on his left shoulder. For 3 days, he could not move his arm. But on the 4th day, he climbed back up. The barn needed to be fixed. He worked on the fences next. He collected fallen pieces of wood from all over the property. He made new fence posts from strong branches he cut from the forest nearby. His hands bled from the rough wood and the rope and the nails. He wrapped his hands in cloth and kept working. By spring, the barn was whole. The fences were standing. The house still needed work, but at least it had a roof that did not leak. Marcus was thinner now. His face was darker from the sun. His hair was longer, but his eyes were bright with something close to joy. He had built this with his own hands. He had made something from nothing. Then one afternoon in April, a truck came down the dirt road. A woman got out. She was maybe 30 years old, with dark hair and kind eyes. She wore work clothes and had dirt under her fingernails. She walked toward Marcus with a serious look on her face. "Are you the new owner?" she asked. "Yes," Marcus said. "I am Marcus." "I am Sarah," she said. "I work with horses, rescue horses, animals that are hurt or sick or forgotten." She paused. "I heard about this ranch. I heard someone was trying to fix it up. I thought maybe you might want a horse." Marcus's heart jumped. He had dreamed about horses since the first day he arrived, but he had no money. He had nothing to offer. "I cannot pay for a horse," Marcus said quietly. "She is free," Sarah said. She pointed her truck. Inside the truck was a horse trailer. "She is free if you want her. No one else wants her. She is difficult and sick and very sad." Sarah opened the trailer, and a horse stepped out slowly. It was a black mare, very thin, with a dull coat. Her ribs showed through her skin. She had scars on her legs and her neck. And her eyes were empty, like she had given up on life. "What is her name?" Marcus asked. "Storm," Sarah said. "That was her name before everything bad happened to her." Marcus looked at Storm. Storm looked at Marcus. In her empty eyes, he saw something he understood. She was broken, just like the ranch had been broken. She had lost everything, just like he had lost everything. "I will take her," Marcus said. "Are you sure?" Sarah asked. "She is not an easy horse." "She might not." "I'm sure," Marcus said. Sarah left Storm in the pasture and drove away. Marcus stood alone with the broken horse on his broken ranch, and he felt something powerful move through his chest. They were both broken, but they were both still alive, and maybe, together, they could learn how to heal. Storm stood in the corner of the pasture. She did not move. She did not eat much. She did not look at Marcus. She simply stood there, as if waiting for something bad to happen. Marcus understood this feeling. He had felt this way many times in his life, standing still, waiting, expecting pain. He did not push Storm. He did not try to touch her or make her do things. Instead, he worked around her. Every morning, he would come to the pasture with hay and fresh water. He would place the hay near her, but not too close. He would fill the water trough and step back. He would let her decide when to eat and when to drink. Storm would wait until Marcus left before she moved. Sometimes Marcus would sit by the fence and just watch her. He would talk to her while he worked on other parts of the ranch. He would talk about the weather. He would talk about the work he was doing. He would talk about his memories of his grandfather and his old guitar. He would talk about his dreams for the ranch. Storm did not answer. She just stood in her corner, her black coat dull and sad, her ribs showing through her skin. "I know you were scared," Marcus would say. "I know someone hurt you. I know you think this is a trick." He would pause and look at her thin face. "But I'm not going to hurt you, Storm. I'm just here. I am here, and I'm not going away." The first week was very hard. Storm ate very little. She lost more weight. Her eyes looked more empty. Marcus began to worry that she would not get better. Maybe she was too broken. Maybe some things could not be fixed. Then one morning, something changed. Marcus was fixing the fence near the pasture. He was hammering nails, working hard, sweat dripping down his face, even though it was still cool in the morning. He was thinking about the barn door he needed to fix next. He was not thinking about Storm, but then he heard sound. It was the sound of hooves moving on the ground. Marcus turned around slowly, not wanting to scare her. Storm had taken 3 steps. She was not in her corner anymore. She was closer to Marcus, maybe 20 feet away. Her head was turned toward him. She was watching him work. Their eyes met for just a moment. Then Storm turned away and went back to her corner. But something had changed. She had moved. She had come closer. She was curious about him. Marcus felt tears in his eyes, and he did not know why. After that day, things were different. Very slowly, Storm began to trust. One day, she ate the hay while Marcus was still nearby. Another day, she drank water without waiting for him to leave. Every small action was a victory. Marcus started to talk more while he worked. He would tell Storm stories about his life. He told her about sleeping in different barns. He told her about the Sterling family and their cruel laughter. He told her about selling his grandfather's watch. He did not feel silly talking to a horse. It felt natural. It felt right. Understand what it is like to be forgotten, he told her one evening. Understand what it is like to think nobody wants you. But we are here now, Storm. We are both here, and we are going to be okay. 2 months passed. Spring came. The snow melted. Green grass began to grow in the pasture. Storm began to change. Her coat became darker and shinier. Her ribs did not stick out so much. She started to eat better. But the biggest change was in her eyes. The empty look was slowly going away. One day, something amazing happened. Marcus was carrying hay toward the pasture when Storm walked up to him. She walked right up to him, and she stopped just a few feet away. She lowered her head, and then, very slowly, she stepped even closer. Marcus froze. He did not move. He could barely breathe. Storm came closer and closer, and then she touched him. Her soft nose came out and touched his chest, right over his heart. Marcus put his hand up slowly and touched her neck. Her black coat was warm and smooth. He could feel her heart beating fast and strong. He could feel her breathing. "Hello, girl," he whispered. "Hello, Storm. Welcome home." That moment changed everything. After that day, Storm and Marcus became partners. They were not just owner and horse. They were 2 broken things that had found each other and decided to heal together. Marcus began to ride Storm around the ranch. At first, she was nervous. Her muscles shook. But Marcus was patient and kind. He would ride slowly. He would talk to her. He would stop whenever she seemed scared. And Storm would try. She would push past her fear because she trusted him. By summer, Storm was running. Marcus would ride across the pasture, and Storm's black mane would fly in the wind. She would leap over small ditches and race along the fence line. She was fast and strong and beautiful. And Marcus would laugh. He would laugh so hard that his whole body shook. He had not laughed like this since he was a boy. The ranch was changing too. The house had a new roof. The barn was painted red. The fences were strong and new. The fields were green and full of good grass. It was becoming the place Marcus had dreamed about. But the greatest change was not in the buildings or the land. The greatest change was in the hearts of a man and a horse who had found each other in their darkest moments. Every evening, Marcus would ride Storm to the highest point on the ranch. They would sit together and watch the sun go down. The sky would turn orange and pink and purple. The mountains would turn dark blue. And Marcus would put his hand on Storm's warm neck and feel grateful for everything. "We did it, girl," he would say. "We are not broken anymore. We are whole now. We are home." Storm would turn her head back and look at him with eyes full of trust and love. And in that moment, 2 broken things had become something beautiful. They had become hope. They had become proof that even the most impossible things could heal. Even the most forgotten creatures could learn to live again. Even the loneliest people could find love. And as the sun disappeared behind the mountains, Marcus and Storm sat together in the darkness, 2 warriors of the Wild West, healing each other without needing to speak a single word. It was a warm afternoon in August. Marcus was working on the house, painting the white trim around the windows. Storm was in the pasture, eating grass and watching him work. Everything was peaceful. Everything was good. Then he heard the sound of trucks. Not one truck, many trucks. They came down the dirt road fast, kicking up dust that could be seen for miles away. Marcus put down his paintbrush and watched as 3 large trucks stopped in front of his house. Out of the first truck stepped James Sterling. Behind him came his 2 sons. And behind them came 2 other men in expensive suits that Marcus had never seen before. They looked like lawyers or businessmen. They looked like trouble. Marcus felt something cold move down his spine. James Sterling looked different than he had looked in his mansion. Here on Marcus's ranch, in the dust and the open air, James looked smaller somehow. But his face was hard and his eyes were cold as ice. He did not smile. "Marcus," James said. His voice was loud and sure. "We need to talk about your property." Marcus wiped his hands on his pants. "I am listening," he said. One of the men in suits stepped forward and opened a folder. "We represent a development company," he said. His voice was smooth, but had no feeling in it. "They're interested in purchasing this land. They want to build a resort. A big resort with hotels and shops and swimming pools. It would bring money and jobs to this area." Marcus said nothing. "The value of this property has gone up significantly," the suit man continued. "Very significantly. 3 years ago, this land was worth almost nothing. Today, it is worth much more. We are prepared to offer you $2 million. $2 million. Marcus thought about the $3,700 he had started with. He thought about how hard he had worked. He thought about selling his guitar, his truck, his grandfather's watch. He thought about sleeping in the barn and bleeding hands and broken bones. $2 million would change his life completely. He could buy another ranch, a bigger ranch, a better ranch. He could build the most beautiful house. He could have anything he wanted. "No," Marcus said. James Sterling's face turned red. "What?" "I said no," Marcus repeated. His voice was quiet but strong. "I will not sell." "You are making a mistake," James said, stepping closer. "Do you understand what $2 million means? Do you understand that you will never have this kind of opportunity again?" "Understand," Marcus said. "Then why are you refusing?" James's voice was getting louder and angrier. "Why would you turn down this kind of money?" Marcus looked at James Sterling. He looked at his expensive suit and his expensive watch and his angry face. He looked at a man who had everything but wanted more. A man who thought everything could be bought. A man who did not understand what real wealth was. "Because this is my home," Marcus said, "and I'm not finished with it yet." "Your home." One of James's sons laughed. He pointed at the house. "This is barely standing. You are living like a poor man in the middle of nowhere. We are offering you a chance to be rich, and you are saying no?" "Yes," Marcus said. "I am saying no." James Sterling's face was purple now. He was shaking with anger. "You are a fool," he said. His voice was very quiet now, but it was more dangerous than when he was shouting. "You will never be anything but a poor ranch hand. This land will drain you. It will take everything you have and give you nothing back. You will work yourself to death out here, and you will still die with nothing." Marcus felt the words hit him. They were meant to hurt, but they did not hurt the way they would have 3 years ago. "Maybe you are right," Marcus said. "Maybe I will work until I die. Maybe I will never be rich like you, but I will be happy, and you will never understand that. You have money, but no happiness. You have land, but no home. You have a family, but no loyalty. You came here to take something from me because you cannot stand seeing someone else have something you cannot buy." James's face got even darker. His sons stepped toward Marcus as if they wanted to hurt him. But Marcus did not move. He was not afraid anymore. He had faced real hardship. He had faced real suffering. Rich men with angry faces did not scare him. "Get off my land," Marcus said. His voice was not loud, but it was clear and sure. "You will regret this," James said. "When this place fails, when you are hungry and tired and alone, you will regret this day." "Maybe," Marcus said, "but it will be my choice. My failure. My land. My life. Not yours." For a moment, nobody moved. The wind blew across the ranch. Dust moved across the ground. Storm appeared at the fence, watching the men with dark, intelligent eyes. Then James Sterling turned around and walked back to his truck. His sons followed. The men in suits followed. They got into the trucks and started the engines. But before James drove away, he looked back at Marcus one more time. His eyes were full of anger and something else, something like fear. Maybe fear that Marcus had found something that money could not buy. Maybe fear that Marcus was happy without being rich. The trucks left in a cloud of dust. Marcus stood alone on his ranch and watched them go. He felt his heart beating in his chest. His hands were shaking, but he did not feel sad. He felt strong. Storm came over to the fence where Marcus was standing. She pushed her head against his shoulder. He put his arm around her and felt her warm body against him. "We did it, girl," he said quietly. "We said no to them. We said no, and we meant it." Marcus looked around at his ranch, at the painted house, at the strong red barn, at the good fences, at the green pasture, at the mountains in the distance, at the sky that was orange and gold in the afternoon sun. He had built this with his own hands. He had healed this land. He had healed this horse. He had healed himself. No amount of money could take that away. As the sun set that evening, Marcus sat on the porch with Storm beside him. He was not a rich man. He would probably never be rich. But he was a happy man. He had his land. He had his horse. He had his home. And that was worth more than all the money in the world. 5 years passed like a story being written page by page. The ranch had changed. But more than that, the people had changed. And the horses had changed. And the whole world around Blackwater Ranch had changed. It started small. One day, a man came to Marcus's door. His name was David. He was thin and sad and broken inside. He had lost his job. He had lost his family. He had lost his hope. He had come to the ranch because he did not know where else to go. "I can work," David said. His voice was very quiet. "I'm not good for much, but I can work." Marcus looked at this broken man and saw himself from 5 years ago. "Okay," Marcus said. "You can stay. We have work to do." David learned to fix fences. He learned to care for horses. He learned that work could heal the soul. And slowly, David got better. He started to smile. He started to laugh. He started to believe that his life could be good again. Then came Sarah, a young girl, maybe 14 years old. She had run away from home. She had been hurt. She did not speak much. She did not trust people. A police officer brought her to Marcus's ranch because the officer remembered reading about the place in a magazine. "Can she stay?" the officer asked. "Yes," Marcus said. "She can stay." Sarah spent the first month just watching. She watched Marcus work with the horses. She watched how gentle he was. She watched how he treated every animal with respect and kindness. One day, she asked if she could help groom a horse. Marcus gave her a brush and showed her how. When Sarah brushed that horse, something inside her woke up. She spent hours grooming the horses every day. She learned their names. She learned their stories. And slowly, her voice came back. She started to talk. She started to laugh. She started to dream about a future. After David and Sarah, others came. Word spread across Montana. People heard about the ranch where broken things learned to heal. People heard about a man and a horse that showed others what was possible. They came walking down that dirt road. Farmers who had lost their farms, workers who had lost their jobs, children who had lost their families, people who had lost their hope. Marcus took them all in. He did not have much money, but he had something better. He had time. He had patience. He had a broken horse named Storm who understood what pain felt like. Blackwater Ranch became a sanctuary. The main house became a place where people lived together and learned together. The barn became a training ground where horses were taught by a man who understood suffering. The pastures filled with rescue horses, the forgotten ones, the abandoned ones, the ones that nobody else wanted. And something magical happened. The broken horses healed the broken people, and the broken people healed the broken horses. Marcus never charged anyone for staying at the ranch. He never asked for payment. He only asked that people work and learn and help each other. A young couple came and stayed for 3 months. They learned everything about horses. Then they left and started their own small ranch. An old man came and worked in the gardens. He had never been happy before. He died there, peacefully, with Storm's head resting on his shoulder. Children came. Lost children. Angry children. Scared children. They learned to ride horses. They learned that animals did not judge them. They learned that they were worthy of love and care. Many of them went back to school. Many of them reunited with their families. But they never forgot Blackwater Ranch. Years went by. Storm grew older. Her black coat turned gray. Her movements became slower. But her eyes stayed bright and full of love. She became the heart of the ranch. Every new horse that arrived would see Storm and understand that healing was possible. Marcus grew older too. His hair turned gray. His face had more lines. But his smile was warm and his heart was stronger than ever. Then one day, a magazine sent a photographer to the ranch. The photographer stayed for a week. She took pictures of Marcus working with the horses. She took pictures of David repairing a fence. She took pictures of Sarah brushing a young mare. She took pictures of children riding across the green pasture. She took pictures of Storm standing in the evening light, her gray coat shining like silver. The magazine published a big story. It was called The Miracle Ranch, where broken things learn to live again. The story talked about Marcus and how he had taken a dead piece of land and turned it into a place of healing. The story talked about how horses and people learn from each other. The story talked about loyalty and hope and redemption. The magazine was read all across America. One autumn morning, about a week after the magazine came out, Marcus was working in the barn. He heard a car coming down the road. Not a truck, a fancy car, a very expensive car. Out of the car stepped James Sterling. He looked older now. His hair was completely white. His face had deep lines. He looked tired. Behind him stepped his two sons. They also looked tired and sad. Marcus stopped working. He stood very still. James Sterling walked slowly toward him. For a long time, he did not speak. He just looked around at the ranch. He looked at the barn and the house and the fences and the pastures. He looked at the horses. He looked at the children playing by the fence. He looked at David working on the roof. He looked at Sarah grooming a young horse. Finally, James spoke. "I read the magazine," he said. His voice was very quiet and very different from before. "I read about what you have built here." Marcus did not say anything. "I came to ask your forgiveness," James said. Tears were running down his old face. "I came here to tell you that I was wrong. I was cruel. I was arrogant. I thought money could buy everything. I thought people like you were worth less than people like me. I was wrong about everything." Marcus looked at this old man and saw that he was truly sorry. "You were right that day," Marcus said quietly. "You said this place would take everything I have. You were right, but you did not understand what I was willing to give. You did not understand that some things are worth everything." James nodded slowly. "I see that now," he said. "I see what you have built. I see the lives you have changed. I see the hope you have created." He paused. "I wish I had understood that when I was younger. I wish I had known that true wealth is not money. True wealth is what you have here. Love, purpose, meaning." One of his sons started to cry. That evening, Marcus invited James and his sons to stay for dinner. They ate together with David and Sarah and all the other people at the ranch. They sat around a long table and shared food and stories. Nobody talked about money. Nobody talked about status. They just talked about life and hope and dreams. When James left the next morning, he was a different man. His visit to Blackwater Ranch had changed him in a way that nothing else had. But the greatest moment came on an evening in October. Marcus was sitting on the porch with Storm beside him. Storm was very old now. Her breathing was slow. Her eyes were peaceful. Marcus knew that Storm did not have much time left.